Now, when you're adding an archetype to your TCG, there are two paths you can take. Which one are you going to choose? In this video, I have broke archetypes down to closed and open archetype. And if you're not sure what style of archetype that you want in your TCG, then watch this video and you will have the answer by the end of the video. So the first type of archetype that I want to address is open archetypes. And I'm going to use Shard TCG as an example for this. So right now, Shard TCG doesn't have a lot of established archetypes. But one of our examples is the Vespid cards. Now these Vespid cards are insect poison creatures. And the Vespid's main gimmick is the hive mind effect. Now hive mind allows these creatures to adopt each other's actions. So this Vespid can use this Vespid's different attacks and counters and blocks. So it allows them to be more versatile. As long as they're on the field, they have the hive mind. So they can copy each other's abilities. Very useful, very potent. So obviously if you're building a Vespid deck, then you would just have a lot of Vespids in that have the hive mind ability. That's how you gain the momentum. But at Shard TCG, we added this spell card. This is the Hive Mind spell card. Now Vespids are a very open type of archetype because any creature can have Hive Mind. You can incorporate anything into that archetype and create your own decks because an open archetype is all about freedom. It is about giving the people what they want, and what they may want is a Vespid fusion deck with something else. They might want insects and dragons, insects and other insects, or insects and beasts. Which brings me on to my next example. So here is another example, except this archetype doesn't have a shared name, it has a shared likeness. And I want to address the Kobold today. So the Kobold is a beast type creature, but it belongs to a subclass of creatures that I like to call rodent swarms. And it may not be an official archetype, but it is an excellent example of an open archetype. Because how rodent swarm works is any creature that has the same action, which is rodent swarm, they can combine their attacks together and attack as a unit. So there is synergy with the rodent swarm action, but still leaves the creature's effect open, which means that you get a lot more versatility when it comes to using a rodent swarm deck, because you can add lots of rat type creatures to your deck and they aren't hindered by matching effects. They can have whatever effect they want. There lies the freedom. And also, if you're interested, a little while back I made a video on rodent swarms, so you can check that out. I'll put it in the cards in one of these corners. And next up we're going to be addressing closed archetypes. But before I do that, if you found this video helpful in any way, it would mean a lot to me if you hit that like button, as it helps the video get out there, helps other homemade TCG creators out there as well. And it also encourages me to make more videos like this. I already received such a positive response from these Talk TCG videos. I would love to make a lot more of these videos, but usually it is quality over quantity. I try to make sure that I have a good topic, something that I can deliver, something useful, something helpful, something that will have you walking away from this video feeling like you haven't wasted your time. Okay, so closed archetypes, and the best example to give of closed archetypes will be Yu-Gi-Oh! For people who aren't too familiar, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has so many archetypes, probably the most archetypes compared to any other TCG. I think every 3 months they're releasing a brand new archetype. They rarely add to existing archetypes as they're always moving on. And if you want examples of archetypes, then go to Yu-Gi-Oh! Because they are an archetype churning machine. So naturally, I'm going to give an example of closed archetypes using Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards. And then we're going to be going over closed archetypes and how they are good and also bad in certain ways. And then it's going to be up to you to decide whether you want closed or open archetypes in your own TCG. So an example I have today is an archetype that I collected when it first came out. It's the Crystal Beast cards. And look at these beautiful cards. Now, what makes a closed archetype is essentially when the creature's effect is only targeting creatures with the same archetype name in it. It becomes a very closed system. So I'm going to go through one example on the Crystal Beast cards, and I'm going to be looking at Crystal Beast Sapphire Pegasus. When this card is normal summoned, flip summoned, or special summoned, you may place one Crystal Beast monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard face up in your spell and trap card zone. Now, we don't really need to address the rest of the card effect. The part that references the Crystal Beast in quotation marks is what I'm trying to get at. That is creating a closed system. Now, do I really want a Sapphire Pegasus in any other type of Yu-Gi-Oh deck? Not really, because I can't use its effect to its full capabilities. It makes a decent beat stick with it being a 4-star 1900 attack, but that is not the way Yu-Gi-Oh is played today anyway. So it's pretty much useless. Now, this closed archetype system is used again and again and again in the Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game. So naturally there must be an advantage to using the closed archetype system, otherwise why would they use it? The first thing that might come to your mind is it's all about the money. If you create a closed archetype system, then when the next set comes out, it is incompatible with that system. And that archetype will slowly fade out of the meta as power creep kicks in, bringing forth the next stronger archetype. Now, that may be a cynical way of looking at things, but I'm not saying it's not true. Another way of looking at it purely through a gaming perspective is if you create a closed archetype system, then power balancing doesn't become as much of an issue. You don't have to constantly update ban lists as much, as if something is contained within its own archetype, you're essentially creating a jigsaw with very funny edges and it is unable to fit together. Now, if you are a one-person homemade TCG creator and you have to make sure everything is balanced right, a closed archetype system can be a helpful way of keeping track of things. If you have a closed archetype system that has limited compatibility with other cards that you create in the future, then you don't have to look back and study all of those archetype cards to then make sure that you aren't creating a game-breaking combination. And that is a huge time-saving advantage when you are a one-person TCG creator. Now, the disadvantage of a closed archetype system is the lack of compatibility as well. When you are a homemade TCG creator, you cannot create 4 sets every 3 months of 200 new cards. It just can't be done. So if you create a 100 card new set that took you a whole year to create, and 20 of those cards are a part of an archetype, then 1/5 of your cards have limited compatibility. And your audience will probably have to wait over a year before a new set comes out. So your audience is now working on limited compatibility with a chunk of your set, and they are waiting what feels like forever for a brand new set with updated cards. So there are the advantages and disadvantages of a closed archetype. So just to quickly recap, an open archetype will have a wide range of effects that can target lots of different creatures that are outside of its own archetype, where a closed archetype will try to keep things as closed and packed in as possible, creating a small community. Now, one focuses on freedom and creativity, where the closed archetype actually focuses on efficiency. Because it is contained within its own little niche, everything can be pulling in the same direction. So usually you're sacrificing creativity for potency, which from a player's perspective is a huge advantage, especially if you're more competitively inclined. That's hard to say. But anyway, those are the examples of my closed and open archetypes. I hope this video was very useful for you today. Don't forget to hit the like button, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you next time for another Talk TCG. Goodbye! Oh, that didn't really work.